Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. I made an association a couple of years ago with a fascinating young lady who was a consultant in marketing, and then she opened up a really interesting new brand called RevCore. She was the founder of it and co-owner of it, and it closed down recently because of COVID-19. And she posted a bunch of different, really compelling stories about what the impact of COVID-19 has been on small business, particularly on gyms and spas, like her RevCore in Cambridge was. And so I thought it'd be really helpful to connect up with her and find out what's going on. So Erin, how do I pronounce your last name, Erin?
Oh, that's such a good question. It's Moraghan, like Monahan with an R.
Moraghan. Erin
Yes,
Moraghan,
you
who's the
got it.
former owner and co-founder of RevCore. Welcome to my show.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. So tell me the story. So you launched this business how many years ago?
Yeah, actually, RevCore was created by my business partner, Angela Rivard. She launched the company in 2012 with a novel fitness system that she invented, which I was really taken with. I actually saw it on Dragon's Den. I saw her making a pitch for with this amazing modality. And with my background in both business development in our industry, in the fitness and wellness industry, along with my own personal training and coaching as a yoga teacher and a fitness coach, I knew that what she had was really special. So she didn't win her pitch on Dragon's Den that night, but I followed up with her to introduce myself, and I ended up writing a couple of articles about what she was doing, and we started working together pretty much right away to see how we could reposition the brand and get it out there.
And so you've been open in Cambridge for how long?
We were open in Cambridge for 5 years. She had opened her initial studio in London, and we had another studio as well up north, and another affiliate studio out west. And so Angie's studio in London sadly closed early on during COVID, right during the initial lockdown. And we did try our best to survive, but I learned a lot, I think, about that on that survival journey.
What'd you learn?
It's been, well, yeah, it's such a good question. I think that we all know, especially those of us with our eyes on small business right now, I think we know that the wellness industry and the hospitality industry are getting hit quite hard. And so many people, in retail and fitness and such have been able to kind of reinvent themselves in some way online. My heart, it goes out to so many of my friends in restaurant and food service, right? Such a difficult time. But it's interesting because I think, if I'm really honest with myself, my gut told me very early on in the pandemic that that what we could survive. I had a feeling this was going to be a big thing. I had a feeling that we could survive it, but at tremendous expense on every level. And my gut told me to make a strategy right away to see what we could do. But like a lot of other businesses, I felt concerned that I was trapped in my lease. You want to be that person who's resilient and stays strong for your clients, right? For your members who you love. But the numbers don't lie, right? It doesn't take long for a brick and mortar fitness business to run out of cash flow. So it definitely, looking back, we hung on for as long as we could. But even still, I mean, it'll be a while to recover from that. So when I look around at my industry, my heart goes out to people really, really trying so hard to stay strong and stay alive.
And so obviously, initially with the lockdown, you had to close down completely. And then you reopened with less capacity, or how did you deal with it?
Yeah, that's right. We opened with much greater reduced capacity than was required. So traditionally in our studio on a busy morning, we might have anywhere from 60 to 70 people in the studio. We capped our classes at 12. So the numbers from a business perspective, the numbers just don't make sense. But we wanted to be as 100% safe and cautious as we could, out of respect for our members and definitely for our staff. So we did reopen when the lockdown was lifted, and we did our very best to stay afloat during that time, and it was very challenging. I think the thing that was isolating was that you really weren't hearing a lot of dialogue in the community, in the small business community, about the realities of the suffering that's going on behind the scenes. So I think as a business owner, even though you might know your numbers really well, which I did, in the back of your mind, you can't help but ask yourself, is there something wrong with me? Is there a reason that nobody else is talking about fear of failing here? Am I alone in this? And so I think in that respect, a lot of us, and now, so many business owners have reached out to me saying, thank you for talking about, some of the fears around closing, because it's given me the courage to be real with myself and not feel badly closing.
Did you
Which is,
feel fearful of closing?
I did. I'm a love to win person. You hate to feel defeated. But at the same time, I knew that if I carried on and accumulated any more debt, this would have a really lasting impact on me and my family. So I had to make a choice that was best for us, which was tough.
We're chatting tonight with Erin Moraghan, who is the former owner and co-founder of RevCore, a brand in the fitness sector that had to close down because of COVID-19. And she's talking to us about how difficult it was, but how it was critical to close down. We're going to take a break and come back and talk a little bit more with Erin about the impact of COVID-19 and these closures and lockdowns and social distancing, et cetera, on small business in Ontario, but around the world. Stay with us.
Hello.
Welcome back. We're with Erin Moraghan, who is the founder and co-founder and head of RevCore, which was a brand in the fitness industry that I was following out of interest because I met Erin a couple of years ago in a marketing relationship that she was involved in, and she had to close because of COVID-19. So, Erin, we were talking about this fear of failure. You said you were a sort of a person that likes to win. But yet you came to the conclusion that closing was the right economic decision for you and your family. So let me ask you a couple of questions. Did the landlord that you have help you out from a lease standpoint?
Very much so. Actually, we were very lucky. Our landlord was incredibly generous with us along the way. So from that perspective, we were very grateful. But even with some of that support, we continued to pay a good portion of our rent, and even with the reduction, it became too much for us to be able to sustain.
So the government programs were such that if the tenant paid 25% of the rent, and the landlord forgave 25%, the government would supply 50% of the rent. Did you and your landlord take advantage of that government program?
Yeah, the challenge with that government program was, number one, that the landlord had to apply for it, which I know was a barrier for quite a lot of businesses. The other challenge with that is that, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that your revenue had to be down by over 70% for the full duration of the period. And our revenue is actually down far below that, except for 1 month where we made a huge effort to survive, and we came just above that 70% loss, which made us not qualify for that program.
And even paying 25% when you're closed down is expensive.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you have a sizable space. We're in a fairly large space. I certainly have friends who are right in the city, who are paying, you know, exorbitant amounts of rent. So from that perspective, we feel grateful here in Cambridge. But yes, absolutely. When you're closed down and your revenue is down by, you know, 70 or 80%, of course, my priority, always my staff. Yeah, very, very, very tough to keep on going.
So the government program would have been better if it was paid to the tenant directly, and would have been better if it didn't have the criteria that you outlined, because a lot of people were impacted, whether the exact criteria was met or not. What about the benefits to employees? Was that helpful or hurtful? So if they lost their jobs or were laid off or furloughed or whatever, they got the opportunity to apply for government assistance. But then were they unwilling to come back and teach?
Actually, that wage subsidy program definitely is what allowed us to survive as long as we did. We were tremendously grateful for that program because we employ our staff. A lot of fitness businesses do things a little bit differently, but our staff were employees. So we were able to keep our core staff working for most of the period, which is probably the primary reason I was able to sleep at night. So we were very grateful for that program. And I know a lot of friends with businesses, though, especially in food service and retail, had a hugely difficult time getting their staff to come back.
So lots of other companies have suffered economic damage. Do you think they should tough it out? Should they close? What's sort of your advice as you've gotten the feedback on your postings?
Yeah, well, you know, it's been really fascinating. Again, you know, I made a couple of posts about my journey throughout our closure, and like I said, we've just heard from, to be honest, hundreds of business owners from around the world with their stories, which has been really interesting, and it's inspired me to share some of these stories and connect with some of these people more deeply. But you know, I think that I would share from my personal perspective, just really encouraging, you know, so many small business owners have a business that is from the heart. People are sharing their passions with their communities. And I think that we have to stay connected to the numbers. You know, I've been talking to so many people, you know, single moms who are remortgaging their homes to be able to pay their rent and their payroll. And without an end in sight at the current, you know, at the moment, I think we have to be very smart and weigh the risks and be very real with ourselves about how much risk we're willing to take, and very real as well with how long it will take us to dig out. And are there other avenues? You know, we know that everybody's going online and finding different ways to deliver their business. I think what's going to be really interesting is, you know, I think this is going to change the way we do small business forever. I think we're going to see industries evolve and change.
This is going to change the way we do small business forever?
I do. I think we're going to see facets of business really evolve on the other side of this pandemic. I don't know what those things will be just yet, but I think it's going to be fascinating to see over the next 12 and 24 months how business changes. I think, you know, we know that certain facets of online will be here to stay, where people weren't willing to move online very much previous to COVID. I think that there's such an openness to all sorts of things, delivering different types of services, therapies, all sorts of different clinical practices. I think we're seeing just a big change, and people are loving some facets of the convenience, right? For example, my kids do their music lessons online now. So there's less driving around and rushing around for parents. Nothing can replace, I think, human connection, but I think that we'll see people make choices a little bit differently, and hopefully think about conserving their time in some new ways, where maybe they can have a little more family time or a little more personal time and less commute.
So the era of the RevCore studio, where people would get together in those classes and with the motivational teacher and get the benefit of the community they were there with, is that gone? And people are all just going to be connecting up on Zoom and doing it one-on-one?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I mean, because our method is really 100% studio based, our equipment is suspension based. It's at the moment not designed for home use. The entire RevCore brand, it's sort of hanging in the balance at the moment, and we're really curious to see how things unfold for the fitness industry, and decide what will be next for RevCore.
So I was thinking that some of the smaller fitness and other, wellness studios might actually benefit, because when you've got low capacity versus the big gyms that have got sort of the same capacity of 10 people or whatever it is, the smaller places can fit that better, comparable to, frankly, some of the smaller restaurants can deal with a limit of 10 more than the big chain restaurants that have got, 250 seats in them.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. I mean, I think that what we might see as well is, going back to really small boutique training, maybe people being more willing to pay a bit of a premium for small group training. There's been a huge trend, I think, over the last decade of like big and loud, high energy, large classes. So, it's interesting. I'm part of a couple of different industry groups and masterminds. And somebody asked a question a few months ago, will we ever see packed hot yoga classes again in the next year or 2 years? Or, those classes where you're just mat to mat to mat, which, there's some real magic in that energy. When will we see that dynamic come back? Who knows? Will people be willing to go back to those types of experiences?
What do you think?
Well, I think that it's a very powerful experience to move in community. It's something that's primal, that we've done since the beginning of humankind. So I think that we're hardwired to move in groups. How long it will be before people are feeling comfortable again to sweat side by side en masse, it's going to be interesting to see.
So, you go back to 1918, 1919, the Spanish flu. When that was over, we had the Roaring '20s, and people sort of came out and went crazy and partied. The Great Gatsby, the speakeasies, the flapper girls, lots of, it was like they partied like crazy because they couldn't for a couple of years. Do you think that'll be it? Or you said that small business will be sort of completely reinvented, and we won't have that resurgence back to where we were before. We'll have reinvention into a more virtual world. Which way is it going to go, do you think?
I think we'll see a combination of both, because I think it's just human nature and the nature of things for the pendulum to swing. So I do think that people will be just starving for that interaction. But I do think that some of the efficiency of online will stick for people, and that they'll pick and choose. And one of the things that I'm really excited about is, for example, here in Canada, I think that we haven't had a lot of opportunities to shop locally online, and we're seeing such an explosion of that. It can be really quite tough to support your community or even just Canadian businesses without leaving your house. And I think that we're seeing some great people put together some online shopping opportunities for Canadians, where we can keep our resources here.
So sounds to me like you think people are going to get used to Zoom and the virtual world and stick with it.
I think it would. I think it'll be interesting. I think that there's some aspects of it that people really love, and but personally, I can't wait to get back into in-person large group yoga and some fun classes. When the time is right and it's safe. I think I can't wait for that.
So you made the decision to close, and
Yes.
you made some pretty compelling posts about your decision. If you were speaking to other, studio owners or gym owners or restaurant owners, what kind of advice would you give them?
I think I would just say reach out and connect to your industry friends and colleagues and not to isolate yourself because, I think we all have a tendency to do that where, small business owners are often working all hours and isolated in a lot of different ways and just really talking and sharing, like I said, staying connected to your numbers, getting support, getting advice, reaching out to your, whoever does your books for you and your accountant, and getting just really realistic support. I think, reaching out to your community, to your BIAs and your DMOs, and just asking for all the support that you can, and also just taking good care of yourself, doing your best to try and eat well and get rest and, keep our eye on the big picture, which is, our well-being has to stay at the forefront the best we can.
You seem incredibly resilient through the decision-making process and the closure. Where does that resilience come from?
Thank you for that. First of all, I think I've been through tougher hurdles than this one. And to be honest, it's moments like this when you become really grateful for those hurdles because you realize that it's taught you some great tools to stay resilient. And to be honest, I think just trying to stay rooted to being of service. Again, my team are so important to me. I wanted to try and keep them working. Our members and just helping people move and stay well in general is from the heart for me. So I just felt confident that especially right now when our health is more important than ever in our lifetime, that we just had to continue putting one foot in front of the other and finding a way forward.
Is closure a permanent decision? Could you reopen in 6 or 9 months if we have a vaccine and COVID goes away?
Yeah, we could. I mean, we've given up this location, but we would be open to a lot of different avenues, absolutely, on the other side of COVID, for sure.
Do brands survive a 6-9 month closure?
That's a great question. I think so. I absolutely think so. I think that if your community is strong, and if your commitment is honest, absolutely. And I'm seeing some formidable brands and communities like the Moto yoga community, just really rally, getting so much support from their member communities, which is so promising. I think that type of energy stays strong.
Are there things you're doing to keep your brand strong and your community together during what might be forever, or at least maybe only hopefully an interim time period?
Yeah, I mean, we created an online platform at the start of COVID, really rooted in mindset. And, I felt very grateful because we had sort of a growing strategy for a mindset focused membership platform. And when COVID hit, I sort of, saw a lot of people in my industry delivering some incredible classes and meditation experiences over Instagram and Zoom. And so I thought, okay, people are really being served that way. I think the best thing that I can personally offer is some mindset coaching. And so, it just sort of organically came together and we've been leading with that. And so, I think that we've evolved what we're offering people to serve what they need right now, which is, I think we're all really in need of as much help as we can get with that mental toughness, as you say, staying resilient, staying positive. moving a little bit differently. I think people need a little bit less intensity right now and a little bit more focused strength and recovery and community. And so we've been doing our best to keep our people gelled together and inviting some new people into our community too.
What is mindset coaching?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I just, at the beginning of COVID, started to share my own personal morning practice, which is basically rooted in neuroscience. It's just really habit coaching. I run through sort of a series of 8 different components every morning on my own, which includes some breathing practice, some gratitude, and different steps that I go through each morning. So I started sharing that, and it became a really great tool for people. And so, yeah, we've been sharing that and helping people develop their own morning mindset practice that works for them.
Awesome. If people want to reach out to you for mindset practice or coaching or something like that, do you have a website, or how do they do that?
Yeah, they can. We have a really accessible 8-day course that people can pick up, really affordable. It's only $28, and they can find that at rebelmorning.com. And they can always find me on Instagram at Erin Moraghan and follow what we're up to there too.
Erin Moraghan, thank you so much for visiting with us tonight and telling us about the challenges of small business during this time of COVID-19. I really appreciate your honesty, your frankness, and your inspiration, because you are very resilient. And I think your comment about getting close to your numbers and understanding your numbers and knowing when you shouldn't just wait it out and to make the tough decision to close and survive to live another day and fight another day is the right decision. So thank you for sharing that.
It's so nice to see you, Brian. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much. Well, welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour, Saga 960. We're chatting about small business and the impact of COVID-19. And I wanted to bring Erin Moraghan back because during the break, she was telling me that she's spoken to numerous different small business owners, and that, Erin, you said one owes the landlord $1 million?
Yeah, she has 2 locations. There's a couple of people that I've talked to in a similar situation. A couple of locations in a very, downtown core. And yes, owing their landlord, who's holding them to it and not giving them any breaks, just about $1 million in rent. And, as I was saying to you, it's tough. We had a very tough conversation talking about, what is the motivation here to continue carrying on? Because how will you recover from this? And we talked about, is this real determination and resilience? Is this a reasonable play to stay in the game? Or, is it a ego at play? It's very, very hard to fail in front of your community, right? And in front of your peers.
But can't you fail during COVID-19? Can't you close during COVID-19? That's got to be a reason. And $1 million of rent payable has got to be a justifiable reason to close down. Frankly, it's a good reason to declare bankruptcy and not have to pay the $1 million.
Yes. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think the challenge again with small business is that, many, I shouldn't say most, but many small businesses, again, are run by people who have a rich passion for whatever their business is, movement or baking or, some form of art or whatever it might be, but not a passion for business. And I think that that devotion to their craft or whatever it might be can sometimes cloud the lens. And, I think too, we can easily become paralyzed in fear, because once you start seeing those numbers climb, I know for me, to be honest, there were a couple of months where I was doing that same thing where it becomes chicken and egg. You're afraid to close because you've accumulated debt. So I feel like, okay, if I don't stay open and make my money back, how am I going to pay off this debt? But then you quickly start to realize, well, this is insurmountable if this carries on. And I felt very grateful, to be honest, that I have I have coaches, right? If I didn't have coaches who, because you're in the thick of it every single day as a business owner operator. And coaches or mentors, whatever, are just invaluable because you need somebody outside of your business to help you shine a light on what's going on.
Do you think many of the small businesses have, a couple $100,000 or $1 million in debt?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Because of COVID-19?
Oh, absolutely. And, I had a chuckle this morning. Somebody posted something on Instagram with some stats saying, it was just an Instagram post, so it wasn't official stats, but basically saying, the percentage of businesses that have closed, I forget what that was. It was 20%, I think. And then saying that, 50% of businesses are down in revenue by 30%. And I had such a laugh because we've got so many businesses who've been closed. My friends in Peel, and Toronto, they've been closed, again and again, and there's no revenue coming in. So, they're down 90 to 100%. So, we know that people are deeply suffering. We know that people are remortgaging their homes, asking for large sums of family money, begging and borrowing, just trying to believe in this dream. And, Brian, you must see this as well. Like, we've all heard so many stories of people who just bought their business or started their business right at the start of the pandemic. So they will be damned if they will stop because they just started. They just built the dream, right? And this is why I think just what you're doing, to be honest, is so important, because people have to connect, they have to share and not isolate themselves in this stress.
It's a challenge. When I think about the situation that you're in and a lot of other small businesses are in, I think about expropriation. So if you lost your business because someone wanted to put in a highway or a road or a government office, they would have to pay you the market value of your business to force you out.
That's right.
Here, they forced you out because of their lack of planning from a public health standpoint, or flattening the curve because they didn't have enough hospital capacity. Or whatever the reason, and you've effectively had your business expropriated for maybe not forever, but for 9 months, and they're not compensating you. It doesn't seem fair.
I think especially for those businesses who are suffering with a second lockdown, I'm interested to see if something plays out there from the government, because that's just, you're making an impossible situation unimaginable. I think it's very, very tough for those businesses.
Well, and you're talking about a second lockdown. What they're talking about in the United States right now, because of the American Thanksgiving Day weekend travel, is that they might have a surge on top of a surge. If that's going to happen, then I got to believe that Christmas is going to be a similar kind of an impact here. So if we have a surge on top of the current surge, and we have a third lockdown or the second lockdown that continues for a long period of time, it's going to be devastating.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I think, as I said, and I don't think we can really imagine what business is going to be like on the other side. Trying to look for silver linings, it's my hope. One of the bright sides, I think, for us about COVID was that, a few friends of mine and I would often say at the beginning, it's like it brought you back to startup days. And that startup energy of, roll up your sleeves, all hands on deck, you do whatever it takes. And there's a lot of imagination that comes in those times, really thinking way beyond your daily scope. So, all we can hope really at this point is that there's going to be a lot of entrepreneurs trying to come up with solutions, and that maybe we'll see some really incredible innovation as we navigate through this. But for those people running mom and pop shops who have been in business. You know, it just breaks my heart. Those family businesses, you know, I have good friends with a pizzeria started by their parents when they came here from Italy. You know, it's businesses like those. You know, what
It's
will those people do?
those heartbreaking stories that are going to be tragic. There's just no question. That said, you've got an incredibly positive attitude, and you've just closed your business, a business that you were running for 5 years successfully. And you've got this positive attitude. You're resilient. You're looking forward to the future. You made the hard decisions for the benefit financially of yourself and your family. Where does that come from? You say it comes from your sort of your morning rituals and your journaling and your positive mindset. But like what you said, you had some tough times in the past, and you don't have to talk about that. But do you think that one of the keys to your success and maybe entrepreneurial success is this resilience to dealing with tough times and coming through them?
Well, I'm incredibly grateful for the epic failures of my past. I think, you know, we're so afraid of failure, but there's no question. I mean, if you're willing to face down your failures and grow and learn from them, there's no question that they humble you down, and they prepare you for tough roads. And I'm truly so grateful for the tough times. I think, you know, we've seen during COVID some tremendous resilience. I think about our frontline workers. I think about, you know, I think so often of people working at the grocery store, and the cafes, and just the people who are putting a smile on every day. We're seeing so much resilience. So yes, mindset is everything, but at the same time, I think it helps if you've been in tough places and you survive them, and you know that you'll survive. You make it.
Well, it sounds to me like you've also got a supportive family and a supportive community.
Yes, very blessed, and an incredible team, and also just really motivated to do what I can to help people through this in whatever way I can.
What a positive attitude in a very tough time, Erin Moraghan. Thank you for joining us and telling about facing down your failures. I like that line. Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, everybody.